Night the palace burned. Princess Lyrae learned what courage truly looked like. It did not look like the tall, proud warriors of her empire. It did not look like the ancient guards who had protected her family for 1,000 years. It looked like a human, a small, fragile creature from a distant blue planet that her people considered barely worth noticing. His name was Kang Taeho. 5 years had passed since that night, but Lyrae still remembered every detail. She remembered the smell of smoke and burning metal. She remembered the screams of servants running through the marble halls. She remembered the way her own guards' warriors who had sworn their lives to protect the royal family had fled when the rebels broke through the palace gates. But most of all, she remembered him. Taeho had arrived on Valora 6 months before the attack. He was part of a small group of humans sent from Earth as a diplomatic gesture. The Valoran Empire had recently made first contact with humanity, and both sides were still learning about each other. The humans were given simple jobs. They cleaned, they carried messages, they stood in corners during important meetings, and tried not to draw attention. Lyrae had barely noticed them at first. Why would she? Humans were so ordinary. They had no telepathic abilities. They could not see in the dark like Valorans could. They lived such short lives, barely 100 years if they were lucky. Her own grandmother was over 800 years old and still considered young by imperial standards. But then came the Night of Fire. Lyrae was 17 years old. She had been sleeping in her chambers when the explosion shook the palace. She woke to chaos. Red lights flashed in the hallways. Alarms screamed. She grabbed her robe and ran. She did not know where to go. The rebels had attacked from multiple directions, and the palace was a maze of corridors and hidden passages. She ran blindly, her heart pounding, until she found herself in the Eastern Gallery, a long hall filled with paintings of her ancestors. That was where she saw him. Taeho stood at the end of the gallery, holding a weapon he had taken from a fallen guard. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. His uniform was torn, but his eyes were steady. "Princess," he said, "stay behind me." She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him that she was royalty and he was just a human and he had no right to give her orders. But before she could speak, the rebels came. There were 3 of them. They wore black masks and carried plasma rifles. They saw Lyrae and raised their weapons. What happened next would stay with her forever. Taeho moved. He moved faster than she thought humans could move. He pushed her to the ground and covered her body with his own. The plasma bolt hit him in the back. She heard the sound of it burning through his flesh. She felt his body jerk with pain. But he did not scream. He did not fall. He turned, raised his weapon, and fired 3 times. Each shot found its target. The rebels fell. Only then did Taeho collapse. Lyrae caught him before he hit the ground. His blood was warm on her hands. His face was pale, and his breathing was shallow. But he looked at her with those strange human eyes and said something she would never forget. "Are you hurt, princess?" She was not hurt. Because of him, she did not have a single scratch. But he, this fragile human, who should have died from such a wound, was asking about her safety. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you do that?" He smiled. It was a weak smile, but it was real. "It's my job," he said. And then he lost consciousness. The palace doctor said he should have died. The plasma bolt had damaged his spine and burned through muscle and bone. On Valora, such wounds were often fatal, even with advanced medicine, but Taeho did not die. Day after day, he fought. His body healed slowly, stubbornly, refusing to give up. Lyrae visited him every day during his recovery. At first, she told herself it was duty. He had saved her life, and she owed him gratitude. But as the days turned into weeks, she realized the truth. She was not visiting out of duty. She was visiting because she wanted to. Taeho was different from anyone she had ever met. He did not flatter her or bow excessively. He spoke to her like she was a person, not a title. He told her stories about Earth, about its blue oceans and green forests, about its crowded cities and quiet villages, about its wars and its music and its strange, beautiful customs. On Earth, he told her once, people fall in love and stay together for their whole lives, even though our lives are short. Maybe because our lives are short. We know we don't have forever, so we hold on tight to what matters. Liray did not fully understand. Valorans lived for centuries. They had time for everything. Love was a calm, patient thing among her people. But humans burned. They loved fiercely, quickly, desperately. They packed entire lifetimes of emotion into their brief years. She found it terrifying. She found it beautiful. As Taeho healed, he was given a new assignment. The Emperor, her father, had noticed his bravery. A human who would die for a Valoran princess was rare and valuable. Taeho was made Liray's personal guard. At first, the other guards mocked him. He was smaller than them, weaker, slower. But Taeho did not complain. He trained twice as hard as anyone else. He learned Valoran fighting styles and combined them with human techniques. Within a year, he could defeat warriors twice his size. But it was not his fighting skills that impressed Liray. It was his heart. One day, she found him in the garden, feeding bread to the small creatures that lived in the crystal trees. "They're hungry," he said simply when she asked what he was doing. "No one else feeds them." Another day, she saw him comforting a young servant girl who had broken a vase and was crying in fear of punishment. "It's just a vase," he told her. "No one will hurt you over a vase. I'll tell them I broke it." These small acts of kindness amazed Liray. In her world, power meant strength. It meant dominance. But Taeho showed her a different kind of power. The power of gentleness. The power of caring for those who could give you nothing in return. She began to look forward to their time together. She began to notice the way he smiled, the way he laughed, the way his eyes softened when he looked at the stars. She began to feel something she had never felt before. It scared her, but she could not stop it. And deep down, she did not want to. 3 years passed like water through open fingers. Each day, Liray woke up knowing she would see Taeho, and each night she fell asleep, remembering his voice, his laugh, the quiet way he stood beside her during long court meetings. He was always there. When she attended ceremonies, he stood 2 steps behind her. When she walked through the crystal forests, he walked beside her. When she could not sleep, he sat outside her door and told her stories about Earth until her eyes grew heavy. They developed their own language. A glance across a crowded room that said, "I am bored." A small nod that meant, "I agree with you." A touch on the arm that simply said, "I am here." The court noticed. How could they not? Whispers followed Liray wherever she went. The princess and her human guard. Some found it amusing, others found it disturbing, but most simply found it strange. Why would a princess of the Eternal Empire spend so much time with a creature who would be dead before she reached middle age? Liray did not care about the whispers. She cared only about him. One evening, they walked together through the Garden of Moons. It was her favorite place in all of Valora. Twin moons hung in the purple sky, their light making the crystal flowers glow like frozen fire. The air was cool and sweet, and the sound of distant water filled the silence. "Do you miss Earth?" Liray asked. Taeho was quiet for a moment. He often did this pause before speaking, as if weighing each word. "Sometimes," he admitted, "I miss my sister. I miss the ocean. I miss the way rain smells." Rain? Water falling from the sky. It happens on Earth. The air gets heavy before it comes, and then everything smells clean and fresh. I used to sit on my roof and watch the rain fall. My sister would yell at me to come inside. He smiled at the memory. I should have listened to her more. Liray tried to imagine water falling from the sky. Valora was a dry world. Rain existed only in the far northern regions, and she had never seen it. Will you go back someday? My mission ends in 6 months. Then yes, I have to go back. The words hit her like a physical blow. 6 months. She had known this, of course. She had always known. But hearing him say it made it real in a way it had not been before. What if you stayed? She asked softly. Teho stopped walking. He turned to face her, and his eyes were filled with something she could not name. Lyrae. It was the first time he had used her name without her title. Just Lyrae. Two simple sounds that meant more to her than all the praise she had ever received. I'm serious, she said. You could stay. I could ask my father. He owes you his daughter's life. He would grant you citizenship. You could live here, on Valora, with me. For how long? Teho asked gently. 50 years? 60 if I'm lucky? You'll live for centuries after I'm gone. You'll watch me grow old and die while you stay young. Is that what you want? Yes. The word came out before she could stop it. Yes, I want that. I want whatever time we can have, even if it's short, even if it hurts. Teho reached out and touched her face. His hand was warm, so warm compared to her cool Valoran skin. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Lyrae took his hand in both of hers. I love you, Teho. I have loved you for 2 years. Every day, I fall deeper. I don't want to spend my long life without you. I would rather have 50 years of happiness than 500 years of emptiness. The words hung in the air between them. Teho was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. I'm just a human, a guard. I have nothing to offer you. You saved my life. Any soldier would have done the same. No, Lyrae shook her head. They wouldn't have. They didn't. When the rebels came, every guard ran except you. You stayed. You bled for me. You almost died for me. And since that night, you have shown me more kindness, more warmth, more love than anyone in my entire life. Tears formed in her eyes, strange, silver tears that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Don't tell me you have nothing to offer. You have given me everything. Teho pulled her close. She felt his arms wrap around her, felt his heart beating against her chest. His heart beat so fast, so urgently, like it was trying to fit 1,000 beats into every moment because it knew time was precious. I love you too, he whispered into her hair. I've loved you since the first day you came to see me in the hospital. You sat by my bed and read to me for hours, even though you were a princess and I was nobody. I knew then. I knew I would never love anyone else. They stood together in the Garden of Moons, holding each other as the twin lights shone down upon them. In that moment, Lyrae believed anything was possible. Love had found her in the most unexpected form, and she would not let it go. When your mission ends, she said, come back for me. Promise me. Teho pulled back to look into her eyes. His face was serious. I promise. Whatever it takes, I will find a way back to you. But fate had other plans. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Emperor Vorath summoned Teho to the throne room. Lyrae was not allowed to attend. She waited outside the great doors, her heart pounding, her mind racing with fear. An hour passed, then 2. When Teho finally emerged, his face was pale. What happened? Lyrae demanded. What did he say? Teho would not look at her. All humans are being sent back to Earth immediately. The diplomatic mission is over. What? Why? He knows, Lyrae. About us. About everything. Cold fear washed through her. No, I'll talk to him. I'll explain. You can't. Teho finally met her eyes, and she saw something terrible there. Something broken. He gave me a choice. Leave quietly or heal. He'll make sure Earth regrets ever sending us here. Sanctions, trade restrictions, maybe worse. He threatened our world? Over us? I'm not worth a war. Teho's voice was flat, dead. I'm not worth your father's anger. I have 1 hour to pack and leave. The ship is already waiting. 1 hour? Lyrae grabbed his arms. You can't. We can find another way. We can run. And go where? He'll find us. He'll punish your people and mine. I won't let that happen. Teho gently removed her hands. This is goodbye, Lyrae. No! She was crying now, silver tears streaming down her face. You promised! You promised! You would come back. Some promises can't be kept. He turned and walked away. Lyrae tried to follow, but guards appeared and held her back. She screamed his name, but he did not turn around. She ran to the spaceport. She pushed through crowds and knocked down anyone who stood in her way. By the time she arrived, the ship was already lifting off. She stood on the platform and watched it rise into the purple sky until it became a tiny dot, and then nothing at all. He was gone. Later that night, she received a message. Only 5 words. Forget me. Live well, princess. She read those words 1,000 times. She tried to obey them. She tried to forget him, to move on, to be the princess her father wanted her to be. For 2 years, she tried. She failed. 2 years of silence. 2 years of unanswered messages. 2 years of waking up every morning and feeling like a piece of her was missing. Lyrae had sent hundreds of transmissions to Earth. She had begged, pleaded, demanded. She had tried official channels and unofficial ones. She had contacted every human organization she could find. None of them knew where Kang Tae-ho was, or if they knew, they would not tell her. Finally, she made a decision. If Tae-ho would not come to her, she would go to him. The royal ship sat in the palace hangar, waiting. It was small, designed for scouting missions rather than comfort, but it was fast and fully fueled. Lyrae stood before it in the dark of night, her heart pounding. What she was about to do was treason. No member of the royal family had ever left Valora without the emperor's permission. The punishment for such an act was exile, stripped of title and honor. If she did this, she could never return as a princess. Lyrae thought about Tae-ho. She thought about his smile, his voice, the way he had held her in the Garden of Moons. She climbed into the ship. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of nothing but stars and silence and her own thoughts. She barely ate. She barely slept. Every hour brought her closer to him, and every hour made her more afraid of what she might find. What if he had moved on? What if he had found someone else? What if he truly did not want to see her again? The ship entered Earth's solar system on a cold morning. Lyrae stared at the small blue planet through the view screen. It was beautiful, in a simple way, not as grand as Valora, but alive with color and movement. Clouds swirled across its surface like white ribbons. Oceans sparkled in the sunlight. This was his home. This was where he came from. She landed the ship in a field outside a city called Seoul. Tae-ho had spoken of this place often. It was where he had grown up, where his sister still lived, where his memories were rooted. Stepping onto Earth's surface was overwhelming. Lyrae's telepathic senses, usually calm and controlled on Valora, suddenly exploded with input. Humans were everywhere. Their emotions crashed against her mind like waves against rocks. Joy, anger, sadness, fear, love, hate, all of it mixed together in a storm of feeling that nearly brought her to her knees. She had known humans were emotional creatures. She had not known they were this emotional. Every person she passed was a bonfire of feeling. A child crying over a dropped toy burned with pure sorrow. A couple arguing on a street corner radiated anger and hurt. An old man sitting alone on a bench glowed with quiet loneliness. It was too much. It was all too much. Lyrae found an empty alley and leaned against a wall, gasping for breath. She had to build stronger mental shields. She had to block out the noise. It took her nearly an hour to construct walls thick enough to reduce the flood to a manageable stream. When she finally stepped back onto the street, she saw Seoul properly for the first time. It was chaos. Vehicles moved in every direction, honking and stopping and starting again without any pattern she could understand. People walked quickly, staring at small devices in their hands, barely looking where they were going. Buildings rose high into the sky, covered with bright signs and flashing lights. The noise was constant engines, voices, music, construction. How did humans live like this? How did they not go insane? But as Lyrae walked deeper into the city, she began to notice other things. She saw a young woman give her umbrella to an old stranger when rain began to fall. She saw a shop owner chase down a customer to return money they had accidentally overpaid. She saw a group of children share their food with a stray dog without a moment's hesitation. Small acts of kindness. Everywhere. Teho had told her about this. He had said that humans were not cold like Velerans. They felt deeply and acted on those feelings. Their short lives made every moment precious, so they did not waste time on politeness without meaning. When a human was kind, it was genuine. When they loved, it was with their whole heart. Lyrae began to understand why Teho was the way he was. He was not special among his people. He was simply human. She had come to Earth with a name and a photograph and nothing else. Finding one man in a planet of billions seemed impossible. But Lyrae was not easily discouraged. She had crossed a galaxy for him. She would not give up now. Her first lead came from a government building in Central Seoul. The humans there were suspicious of her at first. An alien showing up unannounced was not a normal occurrence. But when she explained that she was looking for a former diplomatic officer, they became helpful. Kang Tae-ho, the official said, typing into a computer. Yes, he returned from the Veleran mission 2 years ago. He was discharged from service shortly after. Honorable discharge. Last known address is in Busan. Busan. Another city. Another journey. Lyrae thanked the official and left. She found transportation, a strange vehicle that ran on tracks and moved very fast and traveled south. Busan was different from Seoul. It sat by the ocean, and the air smelled of salt and fish. The buildings were shorter, the streets quieter. It felt more like a place where someone would go to hide. The address led to a small apartment building in a poor neighborhood. Lyrae climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, her heart beating faster with each step. This was it. She was finally going to see him again. She knocked on the door. It opened, but the person standing there was not Teho. It was a woman. A human woman with tired eyes and hair pulled back in a messy knot. She looked at Lyrae with confusion, then shock, then something Lyrae could not identify. "You're not human," the woman said. "No, I am Princess Lyrae of the Valoran Empire. I am looking for Kang Tae-ho." The woman's face went pale. Her eyes widened. And then, to Lyrae's surprise, she laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was bitter, broken. "Princess Lyrae," the woman repeated. "He talked about you. Every day he talked about you. Even when he was barely talking at all, he would say your name in his sleep." Hope surged through Lyrae. "You know him? Where is he? Please? I need to find him." The woman stepped back from the door. "You better come inside. My name is Park Yuna. I'm his sister." Lyrae entered the small apartment. It was clean but worn, filled with old furniture and faded photographs. She saw pictures of Teho as a child, as a teenager, as a young soldier. In every picture, he was smiling. In the last picture, taken recently, he was not smiling at all. "Something happened to him," Lyrae said quietly. Yuna sat down heavily on a couch. "He came back different. The brother I knew was gone. He barely spoke. He wouldn't eat. He had nightmares every night. I tried to help him, but he kept pushing me away. He said he didn't want to burden anyone." "Where is he now?" Yuna looked up at her with eyes full of pain. "I don't know. 6 months ago, he disappeared. He left a note saying he was sorry, that he loved me, but that he needed to go somewhere quiet, somewhere he couldn't hurt anyone." 6 months. He had been missing for 6 months. Lyrae felt her legs weaken. She grabbed a chair for support. "I came too late. Maybe not. Yuna stood and walked to her. I've been looking for him ever since. I have some leads, places he might have gone, people he might have contacted, but I couldn't follow them all. I have a job, I have responsibilities. She paused. But you crossed a galaxy for him. I love him. Yuna studied her face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there must have convinced her. Then let's find him together. The apartment was small, but it held a lifetime of memories. Yuna made tea, a strange hot drink that Lyrae had never tasted before, and they sat across from each other at a tiny table covered with papers and photographs. Tell me about him, Yuna said. Tell me about my brother on Valora. Lyrae wrapped her hands around the warm cup. The heat felt strange, but comforting. He was the bravest person I ever met. When rebels attacked the palace, every guard ran except him. He stood in front of me and took a plasma bolt in the back. The doctors said he should have died. Yuna's eyes filled with tears. That sounds like him, always protecting everyone except himself. He recovered slowly. I visited him every day. At first, I told myself it was duty. He had saved my life, and I owed him gratitude. But then, Lyrae paused, searching for the right words. Then I began to know him, not as a guard or a soldier, but as a person. He was kind in ways that confused me. He fed animals that no one else cared about. He comforted servants who were afraid. He never asked for anything in return. He was always like that. Yuna smiled through her tears. When we were children, he would give away his lunch to kids who had nothing. Our mother would get so angry, she would say, Teho, you need to eat too. But he never listened. Your mother? She died 8 years ago. Cancer. Our father left when we were young, so it was just the two of us after that. Teho joined the military to pay for my education. He sent money home every month. Even when he was on Valora, millions of kilometers away, he made sure I was taken care of. Lyrae felt a deep ache in her chest. She had known Teho was selfless, but she had not known the full extent of it. He had spent his entire life giving to others and asking for nothing. When he came back from Valora, Yuna continued, I thought everything would be normal again. I was so happy. My brother was home. But she stopped, her voice breaking. He was different, Lyrae finished quietly. Yuna nodded. The first night, he smiled and hugged me and told me he missed me, but his eyes were empty. I could see it. Something inside him was broken. Over the next few weeks, it got worse. He stopped going outside. He stopped talking. He would sit by the window for hours, staring at the sky, toward Valora. I didn't know that then. I just knew he was hurting, and I couldn't reach him. I begged him to tell me what happened. He wouldn't. I asked him about you, about the princess, his friends mentioned in messages, but he just shook his head and walked away. Lyrae set down her cup. Her hands were trembling. It's my fault. My father forced him to leave. He threatened to hurt Earth if Teho ever contacted me again. Teho sacrificed everything to protect both our worlds. Yuna stared at her. Your father did that? He does not approve of humans. He sees you as lesser beings. The idea that his daughter might love one of you was unacceptable to him. And what do you think? Yuna's voice was sharp. Do you think we're lesser? Lyrae met her eyes without flinching. I think humans are the most remarkable species I have ever encountered. You live such short lives, yet you love so fiercely. You face death every day, yet you find joy in small moments. You have no telepathy, no advanced technology, no ancient wisdom, but you have something my people lost long ago. What's that? Heart. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and took Lyrae's hand. Her grip was warm and strong. I believe you, she said. I believe you love him. I do, more than my title, more than my world, more than anything. Yuna squeezed her hand, then let go. She stood and walked to a desk in the corner. From a drawer, she pulled out a folder stuffed with papers. After he disappeared, I tried everything to find him. Police reports, hospital records, credit card transactions. Most of it led nowhere. But there were a few things. She spread the papers on the table. Larray saw maps, printed messages, handwritten notes. He withdrew money from a bank in Daegu 3 months ago. A large amount, almost everything he had saved. A week later, someone matching his description was seen at a bus station in Gwangju. He bought a ticket heading south. South to where? That's where I lost him. But there's something else. Yuna pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. He left this in his room before he disappeared. Larray took the paper. It was a drawing, rough, sketched quickly but unmistakable. It showed an ocean shore with a small house on a cliff. Mountains rose in the background. A single word was written at the bottom. Peace. I don't know where this is, Yuna admitted. I've searched online for places that match, but there are so many coastal areas in Korea. He could be anywhere. Larray studied the drawing. Something about it tugged at her memory. Taeho had once described his perfect place, a quiet spot by the sea, where he could hear the waves and see the stars. He had said that if he ever got tired of fighting, that was where he would go. The southern coast, Larray said slowly. Small villages, fishing communities, places where no one asks questions. That's a lot of ground to cover. Then we should start now. Yuna looked at her with a mixture of surprise and respect. You really aren't going to give up, are you? Never. I spent 2 years waiting for him to come back to me. Now, I understand he was never going to. He believes he is protecting me by staying away. He thinks he is a burden. Larray stood, her eyes blazing with determination. I will find him and prove him wrong. I will show him that he is not a burden. He is a blessing. He is everything. Yuna grabbed her jacket from a hook by the door. Then let's go. I have some vacation days saved up. My supervisor owes me a favor. You would come with me? He's my brother. I've been searching for him alone for 6 months. Having help, even alien help, sounds pretty good right now. Yuna smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. Besides, someone has to make sure you don't get lost. You don't know anything about Earth. Larray felt warmth spread through her chest. This was kindness, human kindness, offered freely, without expectation of reward. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet. We have a long way to go. They left the apartment together, stepping into the cool night air of Busan. Above them, stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, under those same stars, Taeho was waiting. He did not know it yet, but Larray was coming. And she was not alone. The journey south took them through the heart of Korea. They traveled by bus, by train, by car. They stopped in small towns and tiny villages, showing Taeho's photograph to anyone who would look, asking if they had seen a quiet man with sad eyes. Most people shook their heads. Some were suspicious of Larray. Her silver hair and violet eyes drew stares everywhere she went. But Yuna handled the questions with practiced ease. She's my friend from overseas, she would say. Rare genetic condition, nothing dangerous. People accepted this explanation more easily than Larray expected. Humans, she was learning, were remarkably good at believing comfortable lies. As they traveled, Larray observed the world around her with growing wonder. Valora was ancient and elegant, but it was also cold. Everything there was designed for efficiency and permanence. Buildings lasted for centuries. Art was created to endure. Emotions were controlled, expressed in subtle ways that outsiders could barely detect. Earth was the opposite. Everything here was temporary. Buildings crumbled and were rebuilt. Fashions changed every season. Humans laughed loudly, cried openly, hugged strangers, and shouted at loved ones. They wasted time on things that had no practical purpose. Games, jokes, decorations that would fade within days. At first, it seemed foolish. Why invest so much energy in things that would not last? But slowly, Larray began to understand. It was because things did not last that humans valued them so deeply. On Valora, time was infinite. Nothing was urgent. There was always tomorrow, next year, next century. But humans lived on borrowed time. Every moment was precious because it could not be recovered. Every relationship mattered because the people involved might be gone tomorrow. This was why they burned so brightly. This was why they loved so hard. In a small town called Namhae, Lyrae witnessed something that changed her. They had stopped at a local restaurant to eat and ask questions. An old woman ran the place alone, cooking simple dishes in a tiny kitchen. Her hands were wrinkled and slow, and she walked with a limp. But she smiled at every customer and insisted on giving them extra portions for free. "She reminds me of my grandmother," Yuna said softly. Lyrae watched the woman work. "Does she have family?" "I don't think so," I asked the man at the counter. "He said her husband died 10 years ago and her children moved to the city. She runs this place alone." "That sounds lonely." "Probably, but look at her." Lyrae looked. The old woman was laughing at something a young customer had said. Her whole face transformed when she laughed. The wrinkles became lines of joy, and her eyes sparkled with life. "She could be sad," Yuna continued. "She has every reason to be sad, but she chooses to be happy. That's what humans do. We take our pain and we carry it quietly, and we try to bring joy to others, even when we're hurting inside. Why? Why not share the burden?" Yuna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "Because we don't want to be trouble. We don't want to make other people carry our weight. We would rather suffer alone than watch someone we love struggle because of us." She wiped her eyes. "That's why Taeho left. Not because he stopped loving me. Because he loved me too much to let me see him break." Lyrae finally understood. All her life, she had thought of selflessness as a simple thing, giving something up for others. But human selflessness was different. It was deeper and sadder. Humans hid their wounds because exposing them would hurt the people who cared about them. They smiled through pain, laughed through grief, kept going even when they wanted to stop. Taeho had not abandoned her. He had tried to protect her from his own suffering. It was the most loving thing she could imagine. It was also the most heartbreaking. They continued south. The towns grew smaller, the roads narrower. The sea appeared on their right, vast and gray and endless. Fishing boats dotted the water, and the air smelled of salt and seaweed. In a village called Tangyang, they found their first real lead. "Yeah, I've seen him," said the owner of a small grocery store. He was an old man with weathered skin and kind eyes. "Came through here maybe 3 months ago, bought a lot of canned food and batteries. Asked about places where nobody lived." "Did he say where he was going?" Lyrae asked eagerly. "South, past the tourist areas. Said he wanted somewhere quiet, where he could see the ocean and hear nothing but waves." The old man scratched his chin. "There's a village about 2 hours down the coast. Used to be a fishing community, but most folks left years ago. Only a few people still live there. If he wanted peace, that's where I'd go." Lyrae thanked him profusely. She wanted to leave immediately, but Yuna stopped her. "We should rest first. It's getting dark, and these roads are dangerous at night. But we're so close. We've been traveling for days. You're exhausted, I'm exhausted. If we find him tonight, do you want to face him when you can barely stand?" Yuna put a hand on her shoulder. "One more night, we'll leave at dawn." Lyrae wanted to argue, but she knew Yuna was right. They found a small inn and took a room together. The beds were hard and the walls were thin, but it was warm and safe. That night, Lyrae could not sleep. She lay in the darkness, listening to the sound of the distant ocean, thinking about Taeho. What would she say when she found him? How would she explain that she had crossed a galaxy, defied her father, abandoned her throne all for him? Would he be happy to see her? Would he be angry? Would he try to send her away again? She did not know, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would not leave without him. Whatever he said, whatever he felt, she would fight for him. She would show him that he was worth fighting for. On the other bed, Yuna stirred. Can't sleep? No. Yuna turned to face her. In the dim light, her face was soft and tired. I keep thinking about what I'll say to him. I've rehearsed it 1,000 times in my head, but none of it sounds right. What do you want to say? That I'm angry, that I'm hurt, that I hate him for leaving without saying goodbye, Yuna's voice cracked, and that I love him, that I forgive him, that I just want him to come home. Lorray felt tears prick her eyes. That sounds perfect. It sounds like a mess. Love is messy. That's what I've learned from humans. You don't hide it or control it or make it elegant. You just feel it fully and openly and hope the other person understands. Yuna laughed softly. When did an alien princess become an expert on human love? I had a good teacher. They lay in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Yuna spoke again. Lorray, yes? Thank you for coming, for not giving up. I don't know if I could have done this alone. Lorray smiled in the darkness. You would have. Humans are stronger than they know. So are alien princesses. They slept at last, and when dawn came, they rose together. The road ahead was short, but the journey was almost over. Somewhere at the end of it, Taeho was waiting. Lorray could feel it in her heart. Today, she would find him. The village was almost invisible. It sat at the bottom of a rocky cliff, protected from the world by mountains on one side and the endless sea on the other. The road that led there was barely a road at all, just a narrow dirt path winding through tall grass and wildflowers. Lorray and Yuna walked the last stretch on foot. Their car could not handle the rough terrain, so they left it at the edge of a farmer's field and continued alone. The sun was bright overhead, and the wind carried the smell of salt and something else, something fresh and clean that Lorray had never smelled before. That's the ocean breeze, Yuna said when Lorray asked. It smells like freedom. The village consisted of perhaps 20 houses, most of them empty and falling apart. Windows were broken, roofs had collapsed, nature was slowly taking back what humans had built. But a few homes still showed signs of life. Smoke rising from chimneys, clothes hanging on lines, small gardens growing beside doorways. They asked an elderly fisherman if he knew of a man matching Taeho's description. The quiet one, the fisherman said. Yeah, he lives up on the cliff. Old cottage at the end of the path. Keeps to himself mostly. Comes down sometimes to buy fish. Never talks much. Lorray's heart pounded. They were close, so close. The path to the cliff cottage was steep and rocky. Lorray climbed quickly, ignoring the burn in her legs and the shortness of her breath. Yuna struggled to keep up, but did not complain. They climbed in silence. The only sound, their footsteps and the cry of seabirds overhead. And then they reached the top. The cottage was small and old, made of stone and weathered wood. It sat at the very edge of the cliff, overlooking the sea. A small garden grew beside it, filled with vegetables and herbs. Fishing nets hung from hooks on the wall. Smoke drifted from a crooked chimney. In front of the cottage, a man stood with his back to them. He was thinner than Lorray remembered. His hair was longer, touching his shoulders. He wore simple clothes, worn pants, and a faded shirt, and he was hanging fish on a line to dry. Lorray stopped breathing. Yuna took a step forward. Taeho! The man froze. His hands stopped moving. For a long moment, he did not turn around. Yuna? His voice was rough, like he had not used it in a long time. Turn around, you idiot. Slowly, he turned. Lorray saw his face and felt her heart shatter and rebuild in the same instant. He was the same and different. The same strong jaw, the same dark eyes, but they were hollow now, filled with shadows. His face was marked with new lines, lines carved by pain and loneliness. He looked at Yuna first. Something flickered across his face, guilt, love, fear. Then his eyes moved to the figure beside her. His whole body went still. Lorray? Her name on his lips was enough to break her. Tears spilled down her cheeks, silver and glowing in the sunlight. She wanted to run to him, to throw herself into his arms, but her legs would not move. "You're not real," Taeho whispered. "I dream about you every night. This is just another dream." "It's not a dream." Liray finally found her voice. It was shaking, barely above a whisper. "I'm here. I'm really here." Taeho took a step back, his face twisted with something like pain. "You can't be here. You shouldn't be here. I left so you could forget me. I left so you could be safe. Why are you here?" "Why?" Liray moved toward him, each step an effort. "Because you're an idiot. Because you made a decision without asking me. Because you thought you knew what was best for me, and you were wrong." "Liray, you told me to forget you. Did you really think I could? Did you really think I could just move on and pretend you never existed?" She was crying freely now, her voice rising. "I tried. For 2 years, I tried. Every day, I told myself you were gone and I should accept it. But every night, I dreamed of you. Every morning, I woke up reaching for you." Taeho shook his head. "You don't understand. Your father—" "I know what my father did," Yuna told me. "She told me everything." Yuna stepped forward. Her own eyes were wet. "You stupid, stubborn, self-sacrificing fool. You were never a burden. Not to her, not to me, not to anyone. You were everything." "I was protecting you," Taeho said, his voice breaking. "Both of you. If I stayed connected to Liray, your father would have punished Earth. If I stayed with you, Yuna, you would have watched me fall apart. I couldn't do that. I couldn't hurt the people I love. So you hurt yourself instead," Liray said. "You tore yourself away from everyone who cared about you and hid in this empty place, alone, suffering in silence. Do you think that's what we wanted? Do you think your pain doesn't hurt us too?" Taeho had no answer. He stood there, broken and lost, a man who had given everything and kept nothing for himself. Liray crossed the last distance between them. She stood before him, close enough to touch, and looked into his eyes. "I love you," she said. "I have loved you since the night you saved my life. I loved you when you made me laugh, when you showed me kindness, when you held me under the twin moons and promised to come back. I loved you when you left, and I loved you during every empty day that followed. And I love you now, standing here, even though you tried to throw that love away." "I'm not worth it." Taeho's voice was barely audible. "I'm just a human. I'll grow old and die while you stay young. I have nothing to offer you. You have everything." Liray reached up and touched his face. His skin was warm, so warm, just as she remembered. "You have your heart, which is bigger than any I have ever known. You have your courage, which saved my life. You have your kindness, which showed me what it truly means to care for others. You are not just a human. You are the best person I have ever met, and I would choose you over my throne, my world, my eternal life." Tears fell from Taeho's eyes. He had not cried in years. He had locked his pain away so deep he thought it could never escape. But her words reached places he had buried, and the walls crumbled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just come back to me." She pulled him close, wrapping her arms around him like she was afraid he would disappear. He held her in return, his whole body shaking with sobs he could no longer control. Yuna watched them, her own tears falling. She had waited so long for this moment to see her brother again, to know he was alive, to tell him she forgave him. She walked forward and put her arms around both of them. The three of them stood on the cliff edge, holding each other, crying together, healing together. The ocean roared below, and the wind wrapped around them like a blessing. After a long time, Taeho pulled back. He looked at Liray with eyes that held the first spark of hope she had seen in 2 years. "You came all this way for me," he said. "You left everything behind. I would cross 1,000 galaxies for you. Your father will never accept this. Then he will have to learn." Liray smiled through her tears. "I am done living for his approval. I want to live for us. Taeho looked at his sister, Yuna. If you apologize one more time, I'm going to hit you. But she was smiling. Just promise me you'll never run away again. I promise. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The three of them sat on the cliff edge and watched it descend toward the water. No one spoke. There would be time for talking later, time for plans and decisions and facing the future. For now, it was enough to be together. Lyrae leaned her head against Taeho's shoulder. His arm wrapped around her, warm and strong. I missed you, she whispered. I missed you too, he said. Every day, every moment. The last light of the sun touched the waves, and for the first time in 2 years, Taeho smiled. It was real. She was real. And he was finally home. It was the happiest month of Lyrae's long life. She learned to cook, earth food, burning rice, and overcooking fish, until Taeho gently took the spatula from her hand and showed her how. She learned to mend fishing nets, her delicate fingers struggling with the rough work until calluses formed and the task became easier. She learned to wake with the sun, to sleep to the sound of waves, to find joy in small moments that would have seemed meaningless on Valora. Taeho slowly healed. The shadows in his eyes did not disappear completely. They never would, but they grew smaller, pushed back by light. He laughed again. He told stories. He held Lyrae at night and whispered plans for tomorrow instead of regrets about yesterday. Yuna visited on weekends, bringing supplies from the city and news from the world beyond. The three of them would sit on the cliff edge and talk for hours, sharing memories and dreams, building something that felt like family. But they all knew this peace could not last. Emperor Vorath had resources that spanned galaxies. It was only a matter of time before he discovered where his daughter had gone. When that happened, there would be consequences. The call came on a quiet afternoon. Lyrae's personal communication device, silent for weeks, suddenly lit up with an incoming transmission. The signal was Valoran. The identification code belonged to the Imperial Palace. She looked at Taeho. He nodded. She answered. Her father's face appeared on the screen. Emperor Vorath was ancient, even by Valoran standards. His silver hair falling past his shoulders, his violet eyes cold as distant stars. He looked at his daughter with an expression that held no warmth. You have been found, he said. A ship is on its way to retrieve you. You will return to Valora and face judgment for your crimes. What crimes? Lyrae asked calmly. Theft of a royal vessel, abandonment of your duties, consorting with a lesser species. Do you deny any of these? I deny nothing. I took the ship because I needed it. I left my duties because they meant nothing to me. And I love Taeho because he is worthy of love. She lifted her chin. If those are crimes, then I am guilty. Vorath's expression darkened. You bring shame upon our entire bloodline. Generations of honor destroyed because you could not control your emotions. No, Father. I finally found my emotions. For the first time in my life, I feel truly alive. She took Taeho's hand and pulled him into view of the screen. This man taught me what it means to care for someone more than yourself. He showed me courage and kindness and sacrifice. He is more noble than anyone in your court. He is human, an insect, a creature that will be dead before you finish your first century. And I will treasure every moment with him. Vorath leaned forward. Then hear this. If you do not return, I will declare Earth an enemy of the Valoran Empire. Our fleets will blockade their planet. Their economy will collapse. Millions will suffer. All because of your selfishness. The threat hung in the air. Lyrae felt Taeho's hand tighten on hers, but she did not falter. Go ahead, she said. Vorath blinked. What? Make your threats. Send your fleets. The galaxy will see who you truly are. An emperor who would punish an entire world because his daughter fell in love. Do you think other species will respect that? Do you think they will fear you or despise you? You dare. I dare because I am no longer afraid of you. Lyrae's voice rang with power she did not know she possessed. I renounce my claim to the throne. I am no longer a princess of the Valoran Empire. I am simply Lyrae, a woman who has chosen her own path. And if you want to destroy Earth to punish me, then do it. But know that history will remember you as the tyrant who waged war on love. The silence stretched for an eternity. Vorath stared at his daughter, his face unreadable. Then something shifted in his expression, something that might have been surprise or respect, or even the faintest shadow of regret. You are truly lost to me, he said quietly. No, father, I am finally found. The transmission ended. Lyrae exhaled. Her whole body was shaking. She had just defied the most powerful ruler in the known galaxy. She had gambled everything on a single moment of courage. Teho wrapped his arms around her. That was incredible. I was terrified. You didn't show it. He kissed her forehead. Whatever happens next, we face it together. What happened next surprised everyone. Word of Lyrae's transmission spread. Someone in the palace had recorded it. Someone else had leaked it. Within days, the story was traveling across the galaxy at the speed of light. A Valoran princess had renounced her throne for a human. The news reached species that had never paid attention to Earth before. Curious beings from distant worlds began to look closer at the small blue planet and its strange inhabitants. They read about human history, the wars and the peace, the cruelty and the compassion, the darkness and the light. They learned about human art and music and literature, created by beings who lived barely a century yet poured their entire souls into their work. And they began to understand humans were not lesser beings. They were different. They burned brighter because they burned shorter. They loved harder because they knew time was precious. They created beauty with an urgency that eternal species could never match. One by one, ambassadors from distant worlds requested contact with Earth. Trade agreements were proposed. Cultural exchanges were planned. Earth, once considered a backwater planet unworthy of attention, became a point of fascination across the galaxy. All because one princess had chosen a human over an empire. Emperor Vorath never sent his fleets. Perhaps he saw the shifting tide of galactic opinion. Perhaps he finally understood that some battles could not be won with force. Or perhaps, deep in his ancient heart, he felt something like pride in his daughter's courage. He never spoke to Lyrae again, but he also never tried to stop her. Years passed. Teho and Lyrae remained in the cliff cottage, though they rebuilt it over time. The walls became stronger, the garden larger. They added rooms for guests. Yuna came often, and sometimes she brought friends. Humans from around the world traveled to meet the alien princess who had given up everything for love. Aliens from distant stars came to see the human who had inspired such devotion. The cottage became a place of meeting, of understanding, of hope. Teho grew older. Gray appeared in his hair, and wrinkles formed around his eyes. Lyrae stayed young. That was her burden, the price of her long life. She knew she would outlive him by centuries. She knew she would carry his memory long after he was gone. But she did not regret her choice, not for a single moment. One evening, they sat on the cliff edge as they always did, watching the sun set over the ocean. The sky was painted in shades of gold and crimson, and the sea sparkled like scattered jewels. "Are you happy?" Teho asked. It was the same question he had asked her 100 times over the years. And every time, she gave the same answer. More than I ever knew was possible. He smiled, and even after all this time, that smile made her heart flutter. "You know," he said, "when I first came to Valora, I thought I was nobody, a guard, a servant, someone who would live and die without making any difference in the universe. And now I know the truth." He took her hand, pressing it against his chest. where his heart beats steady and warm. Everyone matters. Every life, every love, every small act of kindness. We humans may be brief candles in the darkness, but our light touches others, and their light touches others, and on, across time and space, forever. Larray leaned against him, feeling his warmth, listening to his heartbeat. "You changed me," she said. "You changed everything." "No, I just showed you what was already there, the capacity to love without limits, to feel without fear. It was always inside you, Larray. You just needed someone to help you find it." The sun touched the horizon and began to sink. The first stars appeared in the darkening sky, distant suns, distant worlds, distant lives, all burning with their own light. Somewhere up there, the Valoran Empire continued its eternal existence. Somewhere up there, galaxies spun and stars were born and civilizations rose and fell. The universe was vast and ancient and indifferent. But here, on this small cliff, on this small planet, two souls had found each other. And that, in the end, was everything. Larray closed her eyes and listened to the waves, to the wind, to the heartbeat of the man she loved. She did not know how many years they had left. She did not know what challenges lay ahead, but she knew with absolute certainty that she would face them all with him by her side. This was not the ending of her story. It was the beginning, and she would treasure every moment,